Hey, well, welcome to another one of my reviews of Tai Lopez's 67 Steps. This is step number 9, and this one's all about kind of the real core of the Tai Lopez shtick, brand, whatever you want to call it, and that is book a day. And Tai obviously is a reader, I guess, and so he's latched on to this idea that is totally valid idea that, it seems that billionaires or very rich people or very successful people often read a lot. And so in this step, he delves into why that is. And he starts off, with a great quote from Bill Gates and Warren Buffett when they asked if they could have a superpower, what would it be? And they said they would love to be able to read faster, which was a great thing, but a little bit sad. But there you go. And and it's not. And again, this builds on some other things that we've heard already, like Darwin saying, it's not the fastest or the smartest that survive; it's the most adaptable. This whole idea of evolution. And another person who talks about, what's the difference between a rich man's house and a poor man's house, and a rich man's house has a library. So really, books are at the heart and have been at the heart of knowledge and successful people for a very long time. And Alexander the Great had these traveling library with him. So what is it? What is it about books, that gives you this knowledge? And Richard Dawkins again says that. This is a quote, so I'm going to read the quote exactly here, that survival machines, which is us, hopefully, survival machines that can simulate the future are one jump ahead of those that can only learn through overt trial and error. And the trouble with trial is that it's time-consuming, and the trouble with error is that it's often fatal. So simulation is both safer and faster. Sounds good, right? In other words, our brain has evolved to give us this ability to simulate and learn through others. Unlike the dog that's barking downstairs, he learns a little bit from his environment, but he doesn't have this ability to simulate. He also doesn't seem to have the ability to stop barking. So, so when it comes down to reading the books, and Tai talks about this book a day, but I'm going to get to that in a second, a lot of people have issue about reading. It's like they've built up a mental barrier, and he touches on this in this step as well. And poor people, when people hit a roadblock, one thing that humans are really good at is creating reasons about why they can't get over that roadblock. Poor people come up with this reason why they're not rich. This is supposedly how one of the ways that stability happens in a diverse or dichotomous environment where you have few rich people and a lot of poor people. Why isn't there more conflict there? Well, the poor people don't think they should be rich on some level, and so same thing with books. What's holding you back from books? I mean, a lot of us, or a lot of people, because I'm not like that, but a lot of people came up with this idea that there was some kind of books were so painful in school, to read. And the way we had to do it and the way it was assigned put people off books. And I've always loved reading. Okay, I'm stepping out of my Tai Lopez review here for a second, because this is one of the things that really attracted me to Tai Lopez, is I love to read. And I've always loved to read. And it was very painful in school, especially high school, when they would give us, first of all, crap books to read, and then make us write these horrible reports about them. And I think it put a lot of people off. And so now people can come up with a reason why they don't do it. And they say, books aren't important. It's more important to be street smart, or it's a waste of time. You'll always be reading, which of course is a moronic thing to say. But those things are holding you back from reading. And Warren Buffett, one of my favorite Buffett quotes is that, we all learn by mistakes, but it's a lot easier to learn from the mistakes of others. It's about this simulation. Books are one of the easiest ways to simulate. And we can learn from these things. If you read Sam Walton's Made in America book, which I love that book, but Walton, of course, one of the most successful business people in history, wrote this book, and he made his mistakes. And at the beginning, I'll never forget this, at the beginning he had his first store, and he screwed up when he arranged the lease. So 5 years after he'd taken the store from nothing to being very, very successful, he had to move because he didn't do the lease right. So, I learned that from Sam Walton. I won't hopefully have to go through that pain if I come down to get leasing a space. So, humans are highly adaptable because we are born with this ability to learn through simulation. And you should really double down on this ability, and the pace that you learn. You should speed it up. So the other half of this, and this might almost be as long as Ty's thing, but the other half of this thing was this whole making war with a multitude of counselors, which again is learning that high-ranking people, highly successful people, they don't do things on their own. They don't operate alone. The President of the United States doesn't operate alone. A successful CEO doesn't operate alone. He has accountants. He has a board of advisors. They have experts. And that's because when you use more people and more knowledge, the future becomes more secure, less uncertain. You reduce the risk. And we can do this in many areas, not just business. Of course, in health, you can increase your knowledge by reading legitimate health books. And increase your knowledge, you will increase your health. Unless you're a complete idiot, and you say, well, I'm going to read all these books and then do nothing. I don't even think you can do it because you will learn. So the problem is it comes down to what do you read? And you can't just read anything. Millions of books out there. Tai does have this list of books on his website that is pretty good. He has ordered them. It's not a strict order, but he says, you never know when you're going to get hit by a bus, so read things in order. Though, of course, if you're going to get hit by a bus, it doesn't matter what you've read, but there you go. So read the most important books first. Don't be driven by advertising. Just ignore that crap. Don't ignore the book cover. Don't focus on speed reading. And he says read a book a day, and that I think is a bunch of BS. He doesn't really, and he reads in a different way. And this is one of his things. He takes this gold miner approach. You sit down, you go through the book, you find a good nugget, and you move on. And because, maybe you're doing a disservice to that book, but you're going to learn something from the next book. And a book is you can have a relationship with a book. So you go back to it and you go deeper and deeper. You learn more and more about that book. If you have a friend, you don't just see that friend one time. If you see them many times. If you have a great book, you can go to that book many times. And he also has this schedule where in the morning he reads classics. Freud, Will Durant. In the afternoon, he takes a little nap. And he reads what he calls how-to books. I call modern theory books, like Salt, Sugar, Fat, Happiness Hypothesis, Dawkins' Selfish Gene. And in the evening, he goes into biographies. The Jeff Bezos, Everything Store book, Schwarzenegger's Total Recall. I'm reading this Zamparelli book, the guy who was shot down in the Pacific and then captured by the Japanese. Biographies give you hope, motivation, and again, you can learn directly from those mistakes. He has a great quote that I put in here because I agree with this. So he doesn't read horror. He reads some fiction. I like fiction. Anyway, time's too short, but he doesn't read horror because he doesn't see the end game in horror, which I think is great. And so that's it. We're ending up with, these, I'll throw in some catchphrases, like too soon old, too late smart, and, leaders are readers. So, I want to cut this down. Gosh, it's late. That's a long one. This is one of my favorite ones. It talks about one of my favorite subjects, which is reading. That's why it's a bit long. He ended up with 2 questions, and that's what's your biggest excuse in the past to not read, and what is your target pace? And I upped my reading game since starting this 67 steps, and I've read some great books because of it, and for that I'm eternally grateful. So there you go. That's it. That's step number 9, and we'll see you soon.